Well, one of our GCAD Plus users based in the USA is making progress with GCAD Plus and is able to generate species lists automatically and produce relatively simple, straightforward designs. If I zoom out a little here, you can see, I think, that we're in layout space. And if I zoom in on the title block area here and just select any part of it, can you see it's not yet a block? And he's interested in how do I've just paid for a graphic designer to produce a number of images for me. How do I put those into this block? Well, I've managed to do one of them, and it's here, and it's relatively simple to create a design such as this with all the information you need, and then use format and images and browse to the image that you want to add and then add it. Let me close and I'll go back to the PDF file that the graphic designer has provided. Well, here's the file provided by the graphic designer, and it's nicely set out. It's a PDF file in my hands here, and I did try using the AI assistance to lift from this file the images, but in my hands that failed. But you can see we have a native grass and designing one color, 3 colors, and so on. What I did was to do a screen grab, and I used my favorite tool, Irfan View, and I used the print screen key and just was able to draw around like so. And then that file now, that grab, has been saved in a folder for me to use at a later stage. Let's return to GCAD Plus now. GCAD Plus can format images and add one, and if we click here, all image files, you can see we have a very large range of image files that can be inserted. If you're working with a graphic designer, and the simplest way here is not to do what I'm demonstrating, but go back to your graphic designer and say, I need copies of these images in JPEG or PNG, the common file formats, and use those. If you really want very high resolution, then choose some sort of image file like a TIFF file that will give you high resolution, but I don't think it's needed here at all. So let's return to the question now, which was, how do you turn this information that you got into a block? It's a relatively straightforward process. Just put a window around everything in there and then turn that into a block. What I would do before doing that is I would look at my layouts manager just to see the size that we're going to work with. Here's a landscape view on an ANSI B size sheet, which is relatively small. So I'd be inclined to scale up what will become the block so that it fits nicely in the page. I might even do a quick test print to see how that looks. However, the question is, how do we turn this into an effective block? Let's grab it all and we will go down here to create block, and we'll call this ANSI title block. So we'll call this ANSI B landscape. We do need to have a pick point. I would suggest pick here and then use the bottom right of the block, and we'll say OK. The reason to do that is now when we select the block, you can see it's anchored at that point and it's becomes easy to line the block up with the floating viewport. Let's take that new view and we'll use File and Save as PDF. Put a window around the block. We just want to see how that will look on the sheet that this user is intending to commonly print to. So we want to incorporate everything, and we'll call it test01, overwrite that file, and that'll pop up the PDF file, and that to me looks nice, tidy, sits nicely at the bottom of the screen. What I now need to do is to get an adjustment for the line weight, and then I would set the color of the floating viewport to white to give me a good idea of how this block's going to work. Well, I've now changed the color to 255. Line weight of the viewport is set to 0.4, but while we've now set it there's really no need to do that unless you want to show that port. I'd be inclined to move this one back to just by layer, and it's sitting on layer 0. The last thing to do then is to turn line weight on. Come down to the bottom, click, and it's on. I would also check the default value, which is from the US, so it's 0.01, which is the default for GCAD Plus. So we should be able to run our first serious check print. So we'll go File, Save as PDF, the window, roll out a bit, get up in the corner, make sure you include everything of interest, zoom in a bit to get some precision here, and we'll call it Test02 and save. So we now should have a block. It's contained within this drawing at the moment. Yeah, that's much better. If I zoom in here, that's opened up in Acrobat Reader, and I'm just checking, is it legible enough? So if we'll just click in here and scroll down, can we read all the detail? And that looks pretty good. To get a finer, we can experiment later on with setting line weight a little differently, but that as a test, that's working very well. So we'll close the current tab, close that one, that's from our previous view, and zoom extents, and we're very happy that our new block is working nicely. We now need to address the question of how can we turn that into a block that can be used across many projects. The simplest way to do that is to select the block, which we now works on an NCB size sheet, and we'll copy it to the clipboard. We'll come across to New, start a brand new drawing. We'll nominate No Template, and then we'll right-click, paste from the clipboard, and just drop it into the environment there. I'm not worried about the base point or anything else at the moment. You can see we've lost our link, and if we then zoom extends, and then we should be able to select that block and explode it. It's now a completely new drawing. We haven't yet got our image file in, but we are making progress. I'll also come across here and delete the original block and delete all unused blocks. So we have a very clean slate now. We found marking a base point down the bottom right quite useful. So I'll grab everything here and move, again, pretty much what we did earlier, move that point there to coordinate 0, 0, and you can see it shift, and then I'll go zoom extents. What we're now going to do is save it. So File and Save As. What I'd recommend you do, if you're in this position, is make your own folder on the C drive. We'll call that folder Creekside, since we happen to be working with them, and we'll go File and Save As. And here's our folder called Creekside, and here's our title block. So we want to save this and give it a meaningful name. So it's ANSI D Landscape. And we'll save it. So I click it again. It's now broken up. It's one drawing. I just want to check that if I start a line from 0, 0, it starts at the bottom right. So now I'll save that one again. So it's been neatly tucked away exactly where we can find it in a folder with all of the ingredients that we're going to need to make any new projects with Creekside. I'm now going to switch back to that original drawing that we're working with. I'll say File and Open, and sorry, I want to browse, and we'll go to our Creekside and into the Jobs folder, 2025. This is a job in Ferry Road, and we'll go number 2. I increment jobs one at a time. The reason I want to go back there is that earlier you may recall that our designer wanted to have a bold line around the outside. That's effectively drawn with a 2-point rectangle, and we can pop it in like so, and then we can, it's on layer 0, we can set its line weight to 0.4, or for emphasis just at the moment we'll pump it up to say 0.6 so that you can see what we're doing. And we want to give a corner radius, let's give it a 10 corner radius, make sure that line weight is on, and there we are, there's the rectangle, and we need to slightly adjust the block position and move it up like so. So now we're getting close to what our designer was wanting to do. I'd still argue you could play with that title block. There's still space here and to the right of the Creekside one for more information, but it's an iterative process. You just work on it. So I could now replace this one, which was our ANSI B original one, with the new one if I so desired. So I've removed that title block, navigated my way to the folder containing a new block, and we'll click it. Sorry, it's in use in another program. We've got a copy of it running, haven't we? We need to come here and just save it. It's now saved away in our common folder. We'll try that. Blocks again from another file. So we're trying to be very neat and file things away where we can find them in a logical arrangement. So here it is. We can say click and insert it into the drawing. and in it comes, you can see the value of having a point there, an insertion point. So that's now the new ANSI D landscape block. We know where to find it, and we can use it in every drawing. The fun thing we could then do is erase all of this, come back to the model and erase everything now, and do a file and save as. And we're going to put this again in our Creekside folder, and we can throw it into a templates area, and we'll call this, that's not a name that makes much sense, but I'll just leave it there for the moment. We'll call this Creekside ANSI D template, and we'll save it. So anytime we want to do a brand new drawing, we just start with that. So let's illustrate. We'll say File and New. We go OK. We say Open. We browse to our templates folder. We're already there, but let's illustrate. Templates, Creekside template. Of course, I've done the same thing. I've left it operational. And we'll say Close. Let's come back here again. Just make sure that nothing else is open. So we'll go back into No Name, and we're going to open. Pick the ANSI template, and if we go straight out here, you can see there's our template. We just need now to edit the drawing. Interestingly, and I've not finished it yet, but if we go back into model space, you can see there's nothing there. But what we have managed to do is retain all those blocks. So all those block symbols that were in the first drawing are already there, and they could be used over and over again simply by inserting them into the drawing. So here's a blueberry, and you could insert it into the drawing like so, zoom in on it, and when we click, it's already tagged with the species name. So I'm getting ahead of myself, but I hope you see that it's really a plea for organizing yourself in a folder, a local folder, and that you're in control of the various subfolders in there. And when you start putting things away in this form, you'll be able to manage new projects very quickly. So I hope that's answered our users' questions.